Oh, I got paper and pen.
We don't need anyone to sign.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay. Yeah, we decided not to do that. Well, I can see it, but not, I have like a lot of operator error when I try and do that. And until they teach me better.
Listen to my car. I know. I was sitting in
I have 3 hits. Somebody must have hit. Okay. I know. But you are live, so whenever you're ready. Yep. Oh, they went ahead, 1-0. We're top of the 7th, 1-0. No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1-0.
How much?
Yes, we're ready.
Recording the game or you're recording?
Recording, just not up there, projecting up there.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Everybody's ready? Start with roll call, Suzanne.
Ms. Bonacorsi?
Here.
Mr. Madden?
Here.
Mr. Dukakis?
Here.
Chairman Hansen?
Here.
Councilman Morgan?
Here.
Mr. Famular?
Here.
Mr. Shannon?
Here.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Okay, we have one. Let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, correspondence, do you have anything outside of our normal agenda here?
No.
Okay. Public comments, so open it up to public comments for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Close that portion. Any board comments before we get started with our business agenda here? Approval of the minutes of the September 21st, 23rd meeting. So we had a chance to review the minutes. Any questions, comments, revisions? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? John, Brian wasn't here, I don't think. Everybody else was here, I believe, last month. Now we have 4 resolutions to vote on from our September meeting. First one is case number 23-9-1P. That's John Smallbore, 1834 Wayne Avenue. Block 133, lot 102 is a bulk variance for a porch addition to a single-family dwelling. So we had a chance to review the resolution. Any comments, questions, revisions? Entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Suzanne, can we have a roll call of the affirmative voting members on that one?
Sure. Chairman Hansen?
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Mayor Hauk?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Bonacorsi?
Yes.
And Councilman Morgan?
Yes.
The next resolution, case number 23-9-2P, Alex and Caitlin Zaslow, 301 Fourth Avenue, block 30, lot 10 is another bulk variance for an addition to a single-family home. Has everybody had a chance to review the resolution? Any questions, comments, revisions? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Roll call of the yes voting members?
Sure. Ms. Chairman Hansen?
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Mr. Famular?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
And Ms. Bonacorsi?
Yes.
Okay, next one's case number 23-9-3P, Distinctive Image and Design, 605 White Horse Pike, lot 35, lot 27, This is a minor site plan. Has everybody had a chance to review the resolution? Any comments, questions, revisions? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Chairman Hansen,
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis,
Yes.
Mr. Madden,
Yes.
Ms. Bonaccorsi.
Yes.
Oh, I messed this one up. John Schmidt wasn't here. Councilman, no, sorry, Mayor Hauk.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Our last resolution is case number 23-9-4P, Intervoce LLC, 414 Whitehorse Pike, Block 32, Lot 8. This was an amended site plan approval for relocation of trash enclosure and some landscaping changes to accommodate the ADA ramp at the rear of the building. We approved last month. Has everybody had a chance to review the resolution? Any questions, comments, revisions? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Call the roll, please, Suzanne.
Chairman Hansen,
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis,
Yes.
Mayor Hauk,
Yes.
Mr. Madden,
Yes.
Ms. Bonaccorsi.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to our new business this evening, applications. I just want to make an announcement. The first item on our agenda this evening, case number 23-10-1B, IHOC 802 Station Ave, Block 54, Lot 1, for certification of pre-existing non-conforming use. I believe that one is. The applicant has made a request that the application be adjourned to the November 16th meeting, which will take place here at 7 p.m. that evening. That's the third Thursday of the month. Do we need a vote to table that or to adjourn that? Or can we don't need to?
No, but,
It's granted.
and no further notice.
That's the next move.
Yeah.
That I was going to make. There won't be further public notice on that. It will be heard that evening, November 16th, 2023, third Thursday of the month here, 7 p.m. No further notice will be published. It's not required by law, but it'll be heard that evening unless there's a further adjournment. So if anybody's here for that case this evening, it's not going to be heard tonight. And can't take any comment on that until the application's actually heard in public. So thanks for coming out. We'll see you in November if you're here for that. Okay, we have one other item this evening. It's the redevelopment plan, block 25, lots 7, 16, 17.01, 17 and 18. And that's Station Avenue. Planning board task is master plan consistency review this evening. And I understand our redevelopment attorney, Emily Gibbons, and redevelopment planner, Leah Gruber, are here this evening to put on a presentation for us.
Thank you. This evening, as Chairman Hansen said, we're here to go over a master plan consistency review with the plan that has been drafted by Ms. Bruder. This plan sets forth the standards, design standards, bulk standards for the area that is designated. This property, all of the properties in this plan have been designated as an area in need of redevelopment. This board heard that designation hearing, made a determination that the properties did satisfy the redevelopment criteria, and the governing body did designate, PCA approved that designation, and tonight we're here to move that process forward with your review of this particular plan. At this time, I'm going to ask that your solicitor please swear Ms. Bruder in, and then she will provide you her testimony and an explanation of the plan.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Emily, for the introduction. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Leah Fury-Bruder. I am a planner, licensed professional planner, and member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I have been working with Haddon Heights for the last 3 years or so, first as the affordable housing planner, and then more recently doing some redevelopment planning. So I'm going to, even though I know most of you are probably familiar with the redevelopment planning process in general, but just in case you're not, or for anyone in the public who's not, just a quick refresher on where we are. So in February of 2022, Borough Council authorized the planning board to conduct a preliminary redevelopment investigation to determine whether certain identified properties that were in two distinct areas of the borough were in need of redevelopment or alternatively in need of rehabilitation. There's two separate sets of criteria for the two designations, and I'll talk about that very briefly in a second. So study area 1 included properties along the Black Horse Pike. We're not focused on that tonight. Study area 2 included properties along the White Horse Pike from Kings Highway to Highland Avenue and along Station Avenue from 8th Avenue to 3rd. And then there were some parcels along East Atlantic that were also included. The borough undertook the redevelopment planning initiative essentially because it had observed over the years that many of the study area properties were exhibiting signs of neglect. They were designed in a manner that wasn't conducive to revitalization. Some of them were underutilized or vacant, and that these conditions had persisted for several years. The preliminary redevelopment investigation report was prepared by Pannoni Associates, and there was a public hearing at the planning board in April of 2022, I believe. That then the planning board made a recommendation to Borough Council, who then made the designation. This redevelopment, well, after that, there was a non-condemnation area properties included and rehabilitation area properties. So if you look at the redevelopment area map that was included in the redevelopment investigation report, I know you can't really read this from here, but I did attach this. This is from the Pannoni report. It's at the back of my redevelopment document. So you can see the full extent of the redevelopment and rehabilitation area along Station Avenue and the White Horse Pike. The pink lots in this map are those that were designated in need of redevelopment, and the blue ones were designated in need of rehabilitation. The two designations can certainly be planned together. They both get a redevelopment plan if the borough decides that they'd like to proactively plan for those. The difference is that in a rehabilitation area, the longest financial agreement that could be entered into with the redeveloper is 5 years, whereas in a redevelopment area, it can be up to 30 years, not necessarily, but up to. And then in a condemnation redevelopment area, condemnation can be used. In this case, we don't have a condemnation redevelopment area, only non-condemnation. But the properties that we are focused on this evening are only 5 lots. It's lot 7, 16, 17, 17.01, and 18 in block 25. These are at the northwest corner of the White Horse Pike and Station Avenue, starting with 501 Station Avenue and moving a couple properties down the White Horse Pike, Station Avenue, and then one more on the White Horse Pike. Though this area is small, the lots are prominent because of their location at the intersection of the White Horse Pike and Station Avenue. And the redevelopment plan addresses these 5 lots because it really aims to encourage aggregation of the lots or at least coordination among the lots. If they're developed at different times by different developers, the redevelopment plan encourages that they be interconnected and developed with a coordinated design. So all of these lots were found to satisfy criteria D and H in the redevelopment criteria, and one of them, lot 16, which is 501 Station Avenue, was also found to satisfy criteria A and B. So once those areas were designated, the next step in the redevelopment planning process is the preparation of a redevelopment plan, which establishes an outline for the planning, development, and redevelopment of the designated area. And the statute requires that certain things be included in the redevelopment plan. These include the relationship of the plan to local objectives, the proposed land uses and building requirements, identification of any land to be acquired, housing inventory and relocation provisions, and a plan for replacement housing, if applicable, relationship to master plans of adjacent towns, the county, and the state plan, the relationship to the municipal master plan, the relationship to the borough's land development regulations, and that means will it supersede the existing zoning or serve as an overlay? And then a more recent addition, the proposed locations for public electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So the redevelopment plan may also include the provision for affordable housing in accordance with the Fair Housing Act and the borough's Fair Share Plan. And this plan does provide an affordable housing set aside. And it's a critical component not only of this redevelopment plan, but also for the central business district overall. So let me just look at the plan here. So the statute at NJSA 48-12A-7D says, and I'm just going to quote it, all provisions of the redevelopment plan shall be either substantially consistent with the municipal master plan or designed to effectuate the master plan, but the governing body may adopt a redevelopment plan which is inconsistent with or not designed to effectuate the master plan by affirmative vote of the majority of its full authorized membership, with the reasons for so acting set forth in the redevelopment plan. And then 7E provides that prior to the adoption of a redevelopment plan, the planning board shall transmit to the governing body within 45 days after referral a report containing its recommendations concerning the redevelopment plan. This report shall include an identification of any provisions in the proposed redevelopment plan which are inconsistent with the master plan, and recommendations concerning these inconsistencies and any other matters the board deems appropriate. This is the purpose of the board's review this evening of the redevelopment plan. The planning board's reviewing the document that'll serve as a zoning overlay for designated redevelopers of these properties, and it'll regulate future redevelopment of the lots. So if the redevelopment plan is adopted, a redeveloper will use these standards as the zoning, and they'll come to the planning board with a site plan application as you normally would require. And in this case, because there are specific design requirements, they'll also present elevations and all the architectural details that the board may wish to see. So the redevelopment plan does address all the items that are required by the statute. I don't really need to get into most of that. I think you're probably most interested in what does it permit. And if you had a chance to look it over, you'll see that essentially it requires, the redevelopment plan proposes to allow mixed-use buildings with retail, service, restaurant, office type uses permitted on the first floor, and residential permitted on the second and third floor. There is a more detailed list of permitted uses in the plan, but I think you get the gist. Multi-family residential buildings containing more than 4 dwellings as a part of a mixed-use development are permitted when the minimum lot size is at least 8,000 square feet. The minimum lot size in your underlying central business district is 2,500 square feet. So this requires a larger lot size in order to enable the multifamily use, the larger multifamily use. And then multifamily residential buildings containing 4 or fewer units are permitted when the lot size is at least 6,000 square feet. So then we have permitted accessory uses. I think of interest to the board might be parking. Of course, parking is a permitted accessory use, but the parking standards are set forth specific to this redevelopment plan. They will require 1 parking space for each residential unit to be identified within 500 feet of the property. So it's likely that some will be on-site, but given the small size of the lot, there will be some on-site, there will be some identified by a redeveloper, and they'll have to explain to the board exactly where those are located and what the mechanism is to commit those spaces to the site. But every residential unit will have at least 1 parking space dedicated. And then on-site parking spaces for commercial are not required except for medical uses. There are electric vehicle charging spaces required in accordance with Public Law 2021-171. And the redevelopment plan allows a number of other accessory uses, including trash, which will be shielded. There's standards for shielding trash containers. There is allowed to be rooftop decks, like outdoor use on the rooftop. And then we have the bulk regulations, which are set forth on page 8 of the document if you have it, either printed or digitally. For a minimum 8,000 square foot lot, there are some bulk standards. The setbacks from Station Avenue are designed to ensure that you have a streetscape similar to and improved upon what you have now in terms of the width, the design with the brick, the combination of materials, the street trees, street furniture, all that, the lighting standards, that's all accounted for in the plan. The setback from Station Avenue, front yard building setback from the property line. Well, let me say it this way. Property line is one thing. curb line is really what matters in terms of perceiving the setback. The requirement is for the setback, the buildings to be set back at least 12 feet from the Station Avenue curb and at least 19 feet from the White Horse Pike within 100 feet of Station Avenue. And then beyond 100 feet from Station Avenue, buildings on the White Horse Pike would have to be set back 34 feet. Let's see, what else do we have here? There are standards for impervious cover. As you know, in this particular area, have been some long-standing drainage issues. So the redevelopment plan and re-engineering of these sites will provide an opportunity to do what's possible to manage that situation. There also will be, the redevelopment plan encourages a green roof that will enable some groundwater, or not groundwater, but some rainwater to be dealt with on the roof of the building. We have design standards. There are design standards for the streetscape, for landscaping, for streets, trees. The redevelopment plan also, in terms of architecture, provides some standards and also makes reference to the historic design guidelines that were prepared in 2021. So there's reference to that. And we have lighting, we have signs. One thing that I think will be noticeable with the redevelopment of these properties is that the Welcome to Haddon Heights signage at the corner will not be there anymore. So it is, the plan does require that type of signage be applied to the building itself. The residential portion of the redevelopment shall be inclusionary with at least 15% of the minimum number of dwellings of the affordable to low or very low, and moderate income households. And so this will contribute to the borough's fair share obligation. And then, I just wanted to advise the board that in order to evaluate the redevelopment plan's consistency with the master plan, I did look at the 1987 master plan, 2006, and 2016 reexamination reports, as well as the design guidelines for the historic district. And to summarize, because they are voluminous documents, the central goal of these master plans and documents as related to the central business district in particular over the last several decades has really been to balance historic preservation goals with commercial and mixed-use revitalization goals, to retain the borough's character while also allowing it to evolve and respond to market forces. The master plan and subsequent re-examinations have aimed to enhance the economic vitality of the CBD by improving its physical appearance, introducing new land uses, and maintaining the appearance of the presence of institutional uses, such as the building we're in now, the post office, because they add activity to the downtown. The master plans have also encouraged the location of housing within and around the CBD to help to support and enliven the business district. Since the adoption of the 1987 master plan, the focus has been on promoting redevelopment and encouraging context-sensitive infill development, enhancing the streetscape and public areas for a desirable pedestrian experience. They also had recommended over the years that the borough develop a comprehensive design guidelines for the historic district to provide information and guiding principles rather than rigid rules for property owners, design professionals, and contractors, and the HPC. And this was done in 2021. So luckily we have that resource now. The 2016 Master Plan Reexamination Report found that in order for Haddon Heights to remain a vibrant community with a thriving downtown and to compete with other business districts and with suburban shopping areas, it would need to encourage the emergence of a unified design scheme, enhance pedestrian amenities, and reinforce a sense of place that separates sought-after communities from those that are more nondescript. And so the way I read this is that obviously you have a thriving downtown. Even the master plan re-exam was done before the pandemic. Since the pandemic, things have become even harder for retail spaces and office spaces, but Haddon Heights still seems to have come through it okay. So the redevelopment is really aimed at making sure that long-term the area is remains viable and that is flexible enough to accommodate investment while maintaining high standards for design. So all in all, from my review, it does not appear that any of the borough's planning policies or objectives will be undermined by this redevelopment plan. I do recognize for sure that there is a great interest in historic preservation, and that the redevelopment plan will potentially enable the buildings in these locations to be removed. But the upside of that is that there will be high standards for design, and it'll ensure, I think one of the reasons that a lot of towns have adopted historic preservation guidelines is because there were a few decades where a lot of terrible things were happening to downtowns. They were slapping new facades on beautiful buildings, or, putting a 7-Eleven in the middle of the downtown, or a gas station or something like that. And that is not what's happening here. What's happening here is, revitalization with a big investment with beautiful design that's going to be required and demanded by you. So I find that it is consistent with the master plan. The Borough Council also believes that it's consistent with the master plan. If they believed it was inconsistent, they could have directed me to write in the document that it was inconsistent and why. The redevelopment plan does provide for that. But the Borough Council believes it's consistent, and so now they're asking for the board's input. Thank you. I'll answer any questions.
Did we have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, actually. So your report doesn't actually indicate the square footage of each of those lots. Do you know that information? And wouldn't that be important to this? Because you have standards that talk about lots less than 8,000 or more greater than 8,000, or minimum size 8,000, minimum size 6,000, but we don't know what these lots are.
Oh, okay. Well, I can certainly look it up in just a second because I do know it. When I prepared it, I knew it. I don't know it by heart.
Would those lots be consolidated to be over 8,000 anyway?
Yes, so in order to be over 8,000, there's some consolidation required.
But how many?
None of them stand alone at
I mean,
8,000.
forgetting lot 7, because that's a large lot, but
Right.
talk about the ones on Station Avenue.
Yeah, at least 2 need to be consolidated. So, sorry, just one sec.
So lot 16 is like,
I can't see it. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's my eyes.
So lot 16 is 100 by 63,
the 6,300.
and then 1701 is 100 by 23.6.
2,300, and then the other one's at
And then,
2,500.
yeah,
So the total would be around 10,000, 11, 12,000, right? You got 100 by 86 plus 25. Yeah, about 11,000. I guess those 3 lots in yellow there.
So that's
16,
16,
17.01,
17, and 17, and 18 is a parking lot.
18 is the parking lot, 19 is the studio.
But 19 is not part of this. Right?
correct. Correct, 19 is not part.
So when you have 18, you're 18,000.
15,000
Yeah,
roughly.
15,000. Okay.
Are you good?
I wanted to bring up just the setback issue on Whitehorse Pike. I think Whitehorse Pike setbacks all along there are like 35 feet from the curb. I mean, that's what they are. And this is allowing for this building to be closer to the curb, whereas the building across the street is not. Across Station Avenue setback. And to me, it looks unbalanced. It doesn't feel right. And I'm just curious why. And I think the master plan recognized that setback along Whitehorse Pike.
Yeah.
And I just think it is inconsistent. I think it should be noted in the report.
So, the current zone, so although along the Whitehorse Pike, the majority of the existing, say, houses or converted to professional office houses are set back at that roughly 35. They're in the professional POR zoning district. These lots, all of them, even Gossa's and the next one, are in the CBD. So the current allowed setback is 10 feet from the property line, even on those on the Whitehorse Pike at this intersection.
So The one at the corner, 501, is.
501,
is
yeah.
Up to 10 feet,
And so is the next one,
lot 7.
lot,
Yeah, lot 7.
lot 7 and lot 6. They're both in the CBD, so at this time, they're allowed to be 10 feet back from the property line. So it's not, I didn't find it inconsistent with the master plan because the zoning stems from the master plan. But I do agree that the rest of Whitehorse Pike is intended to remain at that larger setback.
Yeah, I sort of have the same concern with Dean, just because of we're not talking about a couple feet here. Most of those buildings are on the pike are 35 feet or greater to go up and down the pike, whereas this one's gonna be 19, that's 16 feet closer. I'm just a little concerned. And if you read the page 113 of the master plan, it talks about the Whitehorse Pike improvement plans, and it says architecture, design, and building setback has respected existing built environment. New construction should match existing building setback lines, construction materials, and roof profiles to reduce visual impact in new buildings. Overall, I love the plan. I think it's great. I just have those two little points of contention that to vote on this, I would refer those two items back to council to review with the redevelopment prior to doing a final agreement, see if there's something that can be done to reduce that. That's just my thought.
But this redevelopment is not, this plan is not reflecting a specific redeveloper, right? I mean, this is generic.
Correct.
As far as we know, there is no.
Just the roadmap, it still has to go back to council.
Yeah, but we've never seen that. We've seen it, we've never seen it.
You're right, yeah, like,
You
and
don't have
that
an
is,
application before you, you have
Right.
the standards that you would like to see.
Right, but I guess my point is it is possible to pull that building back 35 feet from curb line if that future developer is able to obtain all those lots along Station Avenue. Right, it's still make an economically viable, in my opinion. So
I see where you're coming from, like if they were able to acquire everything, it gives you more flexibility overall, which gives you some ability to push and pull here and there. The fewer lots you have, the less flexibility you have because they're small, and you need a certain yield to make it worthwhile.
I would agree overall substantially. It is, with the exception of those items that we brought up, I think it's in substantial conformance with the master plan overall.
And just to point out something else with respect to Dean, what you raised, if you're looking at lot 16 hypothetically, and you just compared it to the Carmody building across the street, the Carmody building along that side uses that as parking. So technically, he could have built that building out, correct? I mean, according to.
Yeah, I mean, the
So
zoning would
he's got-
allow those to go out. I guess my hesitation here is I don't know exactly how far from the curb is the property line. But as of now, they are allowed, both of those could propose some sort of addition that goes out toward the Whitehorse Pike to a 10-foot setback.
And that property owner simply chooses to use that along the Whitehorse Pike as parking.
Yeah, and yes, and this is my other, I will throw one more thing out there, although I certainly think you can pass your comment along to the Borough Council by all means. Right now, when you're on the Whitehorse Pike, when you look into those side yards, or it's really the front, but it looks like the side for those properties, they have parking there, they have like stuff, like trash cans and, whatever. This proposal, once a new development comes in, it'll look neater. It's gonna be more intense use of the lot in a way, but at the same time, you're gonna see a clean building wall, well-designed windows and everything, rather than parking and trash cans.
And as Leah mentioned earlier, with the master plan, it's such a broad document. You are inevitably going to have contradictory statements within the master plan itself. So I think that it is substantially consistent. Your comments should definitely, as Leah mentioned, should definitely go back to council. But from a standpoint of meeting it being 100% consistent with the master plan, I don't think that that's a possibility with the breadth of a master plan document.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's why, when you said substantially, when you're picking a couple things, I mean, while they're really important things
They
to a
are.
lot of people, and it's a sensitive topic, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you can take one or two little things and say that it's not substantially consistent. That's what I would grapple with. I'd be more towards referring it back to council that's consistent and having them revisit those issues with the developer or with whoever the potential redevelopment entity is, or before they finish the plan to look at that and see what they can do about that. perhaps.
Yeah, and just to remind the board, Leah mentioned earlier, that any application for development, once a plan is adopted, applications for development have to come into this board, a full site plan application that complies with the specific requirements of this plan. And the plan is written that where this plan is silent, the underlying zoning requirements of the borough code will apply. So certain things are specifically called out in this plan, but the familiarity that you have with the borough zoning and the ordinances are going to come into play too when you do your review of any site plan that comes in. And that's why Mr. Bach's office will be involved, and he will be evaluating an application the same way he always does pursuant to the MLUL. So at that time, you have the opportunity also to provide your comments and questions to the actual applicant. And I know that once the zoning's in place, the zoning's in place. But, that'll go back to council in your report back.
They would ideally come back with a clean application that suits or that meets 100% of the redevelopment plan at that point.
Yeah.
Well, they have to go back. I know they went to HPC and there was a lot of comment and discourse at HPC. Will they have to go back to HPC again prior to a site plan?
They'll have to follow the normal course, the normal
Okay.
application process. So I believe that is included in an HPC visit.
I do
It's
too.
included once the site plan is submitted.
Okay.
Yeah. That was, I believe they received, the current owners received approval for demolition.
Okay.
But that was it.
I did want to have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. As an initial matter, I just want to make clear for the board's edification that the council has not seen this plan yet. It hasn't been approved or reviewed or approved in any way by the Borough Council. This past Tuesday, we authorized a resolution to send this matter for consideration to the planning board. So I don't want, just because that's occurred, I don't want anyone on this board to think that council's endorsed anything in this plan.
No, I didn't need it.
No, I just want to make sure that that's understood. But that said, I agree with most of the comments, and I think the concerns about the setbacks, I share them, and I appreciate those comments. And I can speak that to the fact that when the applicant did come before the historic committee, one of the HBC's recommendations was that the setbacks match the existing setbacks along the Whitehorse Pike.
That was my understanding as well.
The one question that I have, the concern I have, I guess, is with regards to parking. I know parking can be congested in that area, in that part of town. And the one parking spot for a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment seems to be a bit restrictive, and I think it could result in additional parking problems for that area. I was wondering what, if any, studies have been done to determine if that's an appropriate level of parking for this anticipated building. And I don't know, Leah, if you can speak to that, or Steve, if you can speak to that as well.
I'll start, Steve can jump in. And I have not conducted any sort of parking studies, but, when you're in a downtown situation, you don't necessarily want every building in the downtown to have their own big parking lot, because that obviously detracts from the pedestrian environment. But you want enough parking to be available to serve what's there. The developer who is making an investment in this property, if they don't feel that that's enough, they need to provide more, because they can't, and if they are only gonna place one parking space per residential unit, then the plan will limit, and it can be added to a redevelopment agreement, I believe, that only one car per tenant, per household. So every household in the building can only have one car. Because I know you have a parking ordinance related to street parking, so it's not like people can just go and park their cars on the street without a permit. So I think the way to handle it is, given the limited lot sizes and the desire to redevelop the site, is to require that only one car be permitted per household. And if the developer thinks that they're going to need more, then they need to work out a site plan that will provide more.
Well, I guess that's my question, right? If this plan gets approved, does that then, is the borough then bound by that? And the developer can just say, yeah, we have X number of units and we have that same number of parking spaces. I know when there was discussions with the developer previously, there had been discussion about them possibly leasing some space from the adjoining properties parking area. And I don't know if someone could explain to me that if this plan gets approved, can the borough still impose that requirement on the developer?
That is actually part of the plan. So for the permitted accessory uses on page 6 in 1A, an agreement for use of off-street parking spaces must be provided with a site plan application.
But is that just to meet the 1-to-1 ratio?
Yes.
Is there a way that can be increased?
There is a way to increase it, if the borough were to demand that, with the size of the bedroom count. We could also, in a traffic study, parking study, could certainly be required by the board when it's evaluating.
Yeah, and that's why I asked about the study. I don't want to arbitrarily say that that's too much or too little. I'd like to have some information to make an educated decision on that issue, because I think it's an important one that has a profound impact on the town, because it's such a central part of our business district.
Well, I want to add though, while I didn't conduct the study, it's not based, we didn't pull it out of the air. I mean, we've all had experience with, lots of residential developments, multifamily developments in a downtown setting, don't have the same parking demand for that household that, they do in, say for a single family home out in the suburbs. So it's not based on nothing. But in terms of an exactitude, should it be 0.9 space per unit? Should it be 1.2? 1 is a nice round number, and it ensures that every household has one parking space dedicated for their use. People go in with eyes wide open. They know what they're signing up for when they sign a lease. They get one parking space. It's all part of an understanding.
That's fair for the property coming in, but it's not really fair for the neighboring properties or the other people who use the business district. So that's why,
Well, I would also add that area is only 2-hour parking. So it's not like the residents there, if they have 2 cars, they can't just park on the street to take up space from, customers using the businesses. And also, if you were, the parking permits are only for at night. It doesn't give them permission to park more than 2 hours in that location. So I guess if they had a parking permit, they could park, if they had an extra car, they could park in that spot overnight. But then by 9 a.m., they'd have to clear out because 2-hour parking starts.
That's a good point.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to have your car registered in New Jersey.
Yeah, to get an overnight parking permit, you have to have the address on the registration, and your license have to be in Haddon Heights and within the zone of where you live. It's not just a free, I can park anywhere in town overnight. It has to be, you have to park within your zone of where you live.
To go back up real quick, sorry, I think you had a question now, I got to answer. So, does if this plan is approved, and let's say it goes to or it's referred back to council, it's approved by council, does that allow someone to come in and just propose a redevelopment project for this site and say that we're meeting the standard of 1 parking space and that is it? Or can the borough still have the power to enact a more stringent parking requirement, let's say 1 1.25 spaces or 1.5 spaces? And how would they do that if they wanted to?
So I can answer that. This is an overlay. Yeah, this is an overlay. So that means that in order for a redeveloper to come forward with an application and utilize this zoning, they have to enter into a redevelopment agreement with the borough. And that means that they have to negotiate terms. And so if the borough felt as though the parking standards in here were not going to be sufficient after an analysis was done, before you enter into that agreement, that is something that you would negotiate with the redeveloper, and they would be required under that agreement, so it's contractually bound. Even though the standards in this plan may say something else, they have agreed that they're going to provide you with more parking.
If we make a recommendation or report this evening back to council, we could identify that as one of the issues for.
One of your
for them
concerns,
to
absolutely.
Reinvestigate before they finalize the redevelopment plan.
And
Just like we were talking about the setbacks, we could add that as part of our report back to the.
yeah, and if
Right.
council were to adopt your recommendation with regard to parking or with setbacks, and they revise the plan based off of your recommendations, it would not come back to you. I would imagine that it would be considered a substantive change to the ordinance itself, so it would be reintroduced. And then, but it would not come back to you if they're acting on your recommendation. And then it would go through a public hearing process. So if it were changed substantively,
And
But can I just follow up, because before we get off this subject? So, but if governing body, as part of a redevelopment agreement, does not mandate by the redevelopment agreement additional parking, by right, if they're named as a redeveloper and nobody entitled to use this zoning, they can come in and use this zoning.
oh,
And there's
absolutely.
nothing this board can do about it. So that's,
Mhm.
this will become the new standard.
And that's.
So that's, but
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 only,
the agreement can be done by governing body. I just want to make sure that we have what governing body can do and what planning board can do.
Governing body is the official or the
Redevelopment entity.
ultimate entity of approval.
And if they're not
they're
happy,
the ultimate entity of approval with regard to
Redevelopment.
the redevelopment plan and the redevelopment agreement. Yeah,
They come in with a site plan, we're just reviewing it versus the redevelopment plan.
correct.
It might not have.
and there's a lot of other things, and Lee and I had an opportunity to talk earlier this evening. The redevelopment entity can require this to ride with the agreement, it requires with deed restrictions, that one space per unit. There's a lot of things that can be done that are really outside of the land use process, but that can be done under the redevelopment agreement aspects.
Yeah, I think this may have been what you were doing, and correct me if I'm wrong. So if the plan were approved ultimately as is, and we enter into, the borough enters into a separate agreement with the developer is bound by that agreement, right? But if they sell that property, subsequent purchasers of that property are not bound by that agreement and would only be bound by the plan.
I'm gonna take that one down.
No, they would be bound by, it would run with the land. Like your planning board approvals, your agreement would be,
What runs the plan, the agreement or the plan?
so the agreement would be, in order for the redeveloper to transfer the property, in the redevelopment agreement would be a clause that they have to get approval from the governing body of that transfer. You're entering into these agreements with an entity because of their ability. You vet them. You make sure that they are financially sound, and you make sure that they have the wherewithal to complete the project, and that they're going to operate the project. And so they have obligations. It's a declaration of covenants and restrictions that gets recorded with the county of the things that they will do and they will continue to do. And in the agreement itself, if they're going to transfer ownership of that property to another entity, then that has to come before Borough Council, so that Borough Council can ensure that that entity is also going to operate the project appropriately and would also qualify as a redeveloper. You have the authority for that, over that
But
transfer.
the covenants run with the
And
land.
everything runs with the land.
So it's like deed restriction. So
That's,
if you put it in the original redeveloper, and there's restrictions and covenants like the one space per unit, and that is written in there, it'll run with the deed. So even if they transfer ownership with permission from the redevelopment entity, governing body, that deed restriction or those covenants, whatever they are, run with the land no matter who owns it. Am I correct?
As far as actually constructing everything and doing the physical work, only the approved redeveloper can undertake that, right? Or if it was gonna be another entity, they can't just get an approval and give it to somebody else without being the approved redeveloper, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Without governing governing body as a redevelopment entity signing off, of course. And Chris, I interrupted the question, but did that get it?
Yeah, I think you covered. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or?
I know we discussed the White Horse Pike setback, but the Station Avenue setback of 12 feet, and it also has to include trees every 40 feet, correct?
Correct.
12 feet, what are we looking at right now? Is that 12 feet more or less?
Looks pretty consistent with the rest of the block going towards the fitness place or.
I'm looking at the block, it's
I
got a
looked
lot
at
of zigs and zags.
There's a lot of properties that are out that far there. I didn't know.
Gradwell
Personally, I didn't know.
is much further back. But I'm just curious, is that 12 feet pretty consistent with that end of the block?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
from what I saw it was.
That's my impression as well.
Yeah, the Masonic temple's different. Yeah.
But to Mr. Dukakis and the rest of the board, so is there a specific, are you making general recommendations back to governing body in regards to those two matters? Or just, or do you want to add specifics? Because,
As far as distances,
yeah, so it's up, I mean, it can be general.
I'd say
This-
evaluate if there's a way that it can be more appropriate to the existing setbacks on that corner from the White Horse Pike.
There you go.
I don't know what everybody else thinks, and then evaluate how we can maximize the parking. Does that sound reasonable?
Would be my recommendation to take the 34 feet instead of within 100 feet of Station Avenue, just 34 feet, period. So that's what I would do. That'd be my recommendation.
It's a little bit of a give and take, though. It wasn't exactly 34. I mean, I'd just like to see it closer. I don't know how you define that.
Well, it's the way they said, it was 34 feet to the curb line for the property, any property past 100 feet from Station Line. What I'm saying is,
Apply that same.
plan stand all the way to Station Avenue.
I have the survey. I just remember.
What's the DOT right away, 60 feet probably?
Story.
It's gonna be at least 60 feet.
But, yeah, so, but I believe the curb line, and it's Liz's report, but I think that 34 feet is generally, from the curb line is generally what you see
Yeah, that's.
up and
what I
down the
measured.
line.
Yes.
And I think that's most likely why it came up with
That's where
34
it came
feet.
from. Yeah,
Right.
because
So,
the building that.
If that's what
exists-
you're thinking of keeping
That's what
it
I'm thinking.
generally, then that's a recommendation you want to make to governing body.
Curb line, when I say setback, I meant
Yeah.
curb line.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, curb, if we're saying with the curb line, I believe,
The property line is, nobody knows where the property line is. Everybody can see the curb.
I know where they're at.
I know where they're at.
There's some good markers out there. But I think if you wanted to do that. And then in terms of your parking, the residential parking is a newer standard than the residential site improvement standards.
I'm sure they want to have as much parking as they have to make that work.
So,
What's that?
I'm sure the redeveloper would want to have as much parking as they can to make the property
correct,
attractive.
make it viable. But I think it might be okay, from what I'm hearing of the board, is to keep that more of a general comment back to governing body, is concerns about the parking and the parking per residential unit, based on bedroom, and based on bedroom. And, you know, concern of number of parkings provided per residential unit and the number of parking spaces on the type of residential unit, meaning 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms. And keep it general, because there might be something that the governing body wants to explore with further study.
I would like to, I just want to, as a liaison to the planning, the council liaison to the planning board, I know this plan was only circulated yesterday. And it's a meaty, and it seems to be a very well thought out, and well prepared document, a lot of information in it. And this is a very, as we've all mentioned, this is a very important property to the town. It's in a central location, and there are a lot of issues to be considered. There are a lot of issues contained in here beyond the 2 that we've talked about this evening. I would, as a member of council, I would appreciate if the planning board had more opportunity than just the 1 day to review it and give recommendations just on a meeting from tonight. I don't want to delay the development of this project any more than it has to be. But at the same time, I don't want to sacrifice a meritorious review by the official boards of this town. Because that leads to more significant problems in the long term, and which I don't think anybody wants to have to deal with. So my suggestion, my recommendation would be that the members of this board consider this plan in the next few weeks, and we discuss it, and put together some more formal recommendations in the November meeting that can go back to council. If you don't, it's up to you guys. That's just my suggestion as a member of council. It's up to you how you want to proceed.
Any thoughts? Well, November is gonna be a busy month.
My thought was, I didn't want to hold anything up either. I feel comfortable, but I don't know how, I had a chance to review it pretty thoroughly over the last, I gave a lot of time.
Yeah,
I don't know what the
I can't-
temperature of the rest of the board is, but I'm fine either way. What's the,
That's what I mean.
How does everybody feel?
In terms of, like, need to read a tabling this or making a decision?
we can certainly
Recommendations
table
with
it,
that.
but we could also make our recommendations back to council, go either way, right?
Yeah.
We're not bound by any time constraint.
Well, you have a 45 days.
To get a report.
You know, but council's not going to act without you giving your input.
Okay.
You know, that, well, certainly, I'm not going to speak for council, but that would be my recommendation to council, not to act without your input.
Of course.
And you have 45 days from when it's referred to you under the law to give your report back.
Okay. What does everybody think?
I reviewed it, I don't have my only issues with the setbacks.
The setback was my one issue. I thought the plan looked really good overall, just that one.
I didn't really have an opportunity to review it, that much.
I mean, we don't have to take our recommendations.
Yeah.
It's just one, it's just like,
Yeah, they don't have to.
they're not bound to anything we send back.
It's a student to say, can we have a meeting in 2 weeks? And that, does it have to be a public meeting or does it be closed?
A special meeting?
Yeah.
You do a special.
It would need to be a special meeting. It would need to be a public
You could
meeting.
do it Thursday the 2nd, which would be the first Thursday of the month, November, which would be 2 weeks from now, which would give you enough time to notify notifications, right? 'Cause I think
When's your next council meeting?
November
Eight.
7th, 8th.
So that would get us to you back in November, that would give everybody 2 weeks to review it rather than hold all the way up to the 16th.
We only need five days, I believe, right?
So
For the
there's-
special meeting.
Okay,
For
I-
the clerk.
Yeah, it's, what is, I know it's tight, that's the only reason I say
Yeah,
like worst.
I mean, you would have to be like in the
Second
paper
would be
tomorrow,
the-
you know, in order for the publish.
You also have to make sure that everybody, we can generate one.
Like send to the paper tomorrow, not in the paper tomorrow, but it's tight.
Yeah, it's your issue for next week, like if you were to try to do next week, tomorrow's Friday,
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
they're already printing Friday's issue.
Yeah.
Everybody's.
We'd still get a report to
Retrospective.
council on time after we meet.
What's this?
We can still get a report to council on time for that for their meeting if we act on the 2nd.
It's just a resolution.
Okay.
You know, generally is what is adopted.
You could ask the solicitor to draft what you discussed tonight
I don't-
as a starting point and adopt the resolution that night. You know,
Yeah.
and then you can always handwrite in whatever changes from there. You can meet, discuss. If nothing changes from this initial discussion, you can adopt that resolution that same night.
Does everybody want to do it on the 2nd? How's everybody look for November 2nd? I think I'm good.
I am not.
Are you okay if you need to be here if we?
Would be beneficial if I were here.
Of course.
You could do, so you, in essence, you could do any day that week.
Yeah.
Not Halloween, obviously. We did a good,
Wednesday the 1st.
kid.
I can leave my seat first. I can't do this stuff.
Your big day.
Can everybody do Wednesday the 1st?
I'm good.
I will not say on record I'm good. It's my wife's birthday, but.
Hopefully it won't be, it won't take too long.
So I'm hearing November 1st?
Leah is checking first.
Okay.
Emily, are you good the first?
Yes. I'll be with Rakesh on.
Sorry to hear that. You said the same thing.
I won't be here, but you don't really need me here, but I'll have someone here.
Thanks.
Yeah, the first is fine. For me.
Anybody else good with that?
And it has to be noticed in the newspaper?
Special meeting?
Okay.
Yeah, just because we're meeting. Do we, I know we don't have to, we're not required to open this up to the public, but
It's not a requirement, but if, yeah,
Okay,
it's
since we-
perfectly fine to do so, I mean, to hear what people have to say and thoughts they may have.
so everybody want to, we can open it up to the public for we're gonna open the meeting to the public at this point for anybody that might have any, questions or comments on this matter. If your, any questions or comments come forward, we'll have our, solicitor swear you in. Seeing none, we'll close public. So do we need a motion to table this or?
Just to continue it.
Take a motion to continue it or set it up for a special meeting on the 1st at 7 o'clock. Do we want to go earlier? Or do 7? Okay. Okay.
I think the motion is report to.
I'll second it.
You got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? All right, it's tabled till the 1st. I think that concludes all of our businesses.
Yeah, I think that's 27.
What's that?
27 is probably line. Is that what you say, the property line? And the lead business.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah.
We need it in general.
Yeah, so the 34 is probably, yeah.
Well, anything else? Does anybody else have anything this evening before we entertain a motion for adjournment? All right. Who wants to make the motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, what's the score?
Lost.
It's all good. Get through the process. So it's all good, my friend.
Did find it over.
That's why it's good.